Alright, so it is really time to go for it now, and I just gotta find what I'm looking for here. So yep, you guessed it, it is time for some lawn renovation again. And the north side of my house was where we cut in most of the zones for all the front and all the other side there. So the north side, the front, and that little section of grass out by the street. So 3 of those lines had to run all through that little section, and that was where we did probably the most damage to the yard from the irrigation install. What I had planned on doing was a little bit of renovation here anyway as a testing ground, but now that I have to do so much extensive leveling, I'm just gonna go ahead with my whole plan. So what I'm gonna do then is some monostand Kentucky Bluegrass testing. And the reason that I'm doing it over here is, one, it's kind of out of the way of the rest of the yard, so I can do some testing without it really being super noticeable in case things don't match completely. Although with all these varieties of bluegrass being some of the darker ones that I'm picking anyway, I don't believe that we'll be able to tell huge differences, but we'll just see what happens. I'm doing this testing also to be able to kind of show you guys some of the different varieties, some of the better varieties of bluegrass and what they would end up looking like. So holy cow, we actually have a workbench to mix some stuff on. So this will be my first kind of use here of using this workbench, but I'm just going to be using some weed and grass killer, pretty much the exact same thing that I used last year on the side yard renovation. I've got a little bit of that left, and otherwise I got a little extra of another bottle that's exactly the same concentrate. So whenever you're dealing with this grass killer, weed killer, you want to make sure that you're not mixing it in containers that you really want to use for other things, or at least that is my personal opinion. So this is an old spray can that I'm just gonna use to do the spraying, and I also have a little mixing cup. I don't use anything else to mix with this, so that is the other thing. And we are gonna mix up a gallon of this to start off with, and we need 2.5 ounces of this stuff in a gallon, and that's supposed to cover 300 square feet. I've got about around 500 square feet right in that area, so we'll probably have to do 2 mixes. But let's get some water in here, mix up that, and then put in a little bit of blue marking dye too, so that I know where I've sprayed. And that helps as well, just because we're dealing with something that once you spray it onto whatever area you spray it onto, that's going to die, so you got to be a little more careful with this stuff. Okay, we've got almost a gallon in here, and 2.5 ounces, what we need here. Put in a little bit of this marking dye. As I've mentioned before, this stuff can be a pain, can be very messy, so have some paper towels handy, or just be a little bit careful with it. Okay, we'll top that off and get to spraying. Alright, this is the moment of no return here. So anywhere where we are getting close to anything that I need to save, I just like to use some cardboard and spray right along that edge, really close to the ground, so we're not getting any wind, any drift or anything. Gonna do the exact same thing on this fence line. So there's a couple things to take note of here when you're doing this process. One, make sure you're wearing your proper PPE. I've got on also some boots here, you can see, but preferably we don't want to get into this at all or walk into it, because then we're going to have it on our boots, and then if we walk into a section we don't want to kill, there's a possibility you could track some things. So wherever your starting point is, just kind of put that, basically make a line there and then move yourself backwards from there and never walk into it. That's basically how I do it. So I've got a line there kind of right on the edge of where I wanted to stop, and then I'm going to move myself back, and I'm not going to walk through anything. Also, if you wear polarized sunglasses, you can also tell a lot better where your line is and where the liquid is. So even with that marking dye, if you do have some sunglasses, you should be able to tell pretty easily what's wet and what isn't as far as the grass. So we're just going to move ourselves back this way and keep on going. Right, so the other thing that I'm doing is keeping the wand very close to the ground, just to make sure that we don't have any drift. It's also important that you don't pick a windy day to do this, and right now it's about evening when the wind usually dies down, and we're about as non-windy as we get here. So over on this side I have a line kind of made so that I know on this edge here where I want to stop my spray, and I could also use the cardboard on that line too, but I'm just kind of getting close, and then we'll see once things start to die if I need to kind of perfect that line at all or not, but I'm getting pretty close to where I have it marked out. Alright, what's done is done, but in the end we will be able to test some grass types firsthand and get a better look at them. And it's always a bit weird to spray grass and know that it's going to die. There's no going back from that, so make sure that when you do it you're ready for it. But in the end, again, I know it's going to be awesome, and I know that firsthand from what I did last year on that side yard area. So looking forward to getting to the rest of this process here, but there's a few more things I want to talk about as far as what grass types we are actually going to use here as far as Kentucky bluegrass. So what I'm going to do is split this into 3 different sections right here. So basically I got 2 fence posts and then 2 fence posts, so we're going to split that evenly right on those sections and plant 1 grass here, 1 there, and then that front little section will get its own little section there. It'll be slightly bigger than these other 2, but not too much bigger. So you can see here a few days later, probably 5 or 6 days into it now, how much of this has died off now. What's interesting is that the areas that are getting full sun are really dying much more quickly, and then you can kind of tell where I'm getting the most shade, which is actually kind of nice, so that I know kind of where my shade line is, at least at this point of the year, and what sections here are going to get the most shade. So that helps me also make a decision on what grass type should go into the most shaded area. All the rest of this back here should be pretty much full sun for the most of the time, as much as it gets on this north side of my house, so I'm not going to worry too much about which one I pick for these sections. But you can also see some things here like nutsedge that still do not like to die even with that grass and weed killers. So I think that this will probably still get there, but we're going to do 1 more app before I put the seed down to make sure everything is good and covered. Alright, so what did I choose for the actual bluegrasses that I'm going to be testing here? And I want to first thank Drew from Seed Superstore for sending me 3 different varieties of bluegrass. We're going to do monostands, meaning that there will not be a mixture of bluegrass in there. In these test plots, I'm going to be doing just 1 variety in each section. The first one we're going to talk about is Mazama. So that one is this one right here. And this one, I think I've decided, is going to go up in that little bit shadier section on the far side right by the house. The reason for that is that this one has shown very good shade tolerance, and I know there's so many people out there that have shady areas and they don't know what grass type to use. Now for the most part, fine fescues do better in the shaded areas, but if you want to do bluegrass, there's a few different varieties that you can use that have shown a little bit more shade tolerance. This one right here is one that has done really well in the shade in their testing. Also see what kind of color and texture come out of this one compared to the other ones I'm testing. So the second one here is Blue Bank. So in that other section there where I'm getting pretty much full sun, I just wanted to test out some of the darker varieties of bluegrass. This will be still cut low, so it will be a little bit different maybe than some of you doing a taller cut yard, but most of these you could just let grow up a little bit. But for me, I want to keep doing the low mow thing, and I want to test out what's going to have the best color out of these bluegrasses and going to be in more of a full sun situation. And then lastly is the old standard here. This is Midnight Kentucky Bluegrass. So this one has been known, especially in a lot of tests around my area, to be one of the best bluegrasses for kind of the Midwest section. The Midnight has always done well in the testing, so that one is one that I wanted to put in there and kind of see what it looks like compared to the other ones. So for those of you starting questions right now on when you should start your lawn renovation, of course I'm in the middle of the Midwest section here in Iowa, and typically for bluegrass it's a little bit longer, so I'm going to plan to plant this right in mid-August or so. A few things to keep in mind with that are that you need to make sure you have your watering in place and figured out, because if you're still in August here where we live, it can still be plenty hot. Just make sure you have your watering in place and do not let the seed dry out. So if you have an irrigation system, get that thing dialed in. If you don't, and I had not had one up until this year, I have a DIY kind of system that I always used, using above ground sprinklers, and you get them placed in the right area, get some timers going or whatever you need to do to keep that going during the day. And I think you'll have some great success. I also have a video series completely on lawn renovation from last year when I did the other south side of my house. And so if you're looking to get a jump start on all of this whole process, then check out that series. I will link it here at the end of the video and in the description too. So I'll have plenty more on how I'm going to level out this ground, plant all the seed. Cross our fingers we don't have any major storms during this time frame, which is always something that you have to deal with, and I'll be filming all of that process and bringing you along for it. So thanks so much for watching this video. We'll have more really soon. We'll see you next time.